Oh, wow, there's lions. Wait, are you here in Africa with me?
No, I'm in England.
Wait, so how can I see you?
I don't know. Are we in the internet? Are you on your computer?
Oh, I do see that light. Oh, we're on YouTube Live. YouTube Live.
Right. It's live streamed for Deaf Awareness Week. It starts Friday at 6 o'clock. And look, it's 6 o'clock. So it's starting.
Oh, how could I forget?
No, busy, having so much going on and traveling on vacation. The time has come without my noticing.
Yeah, there's so much to see here.
Have you ridden the elephants? Is it fun?
I did. It was so exciting. But it is hot here. It's really hot.
I'm sure. It's cool here. Not bad at all.
Oh, you're
I'm
lucky.
wearing a short sleeve shirt. It's nice.
I'm wondering how many deaf travelers do you think there are?
Well, I know a few, not many. I know a few of my friends who are travelers, but I don't know a lot.
Huh, I have an idea. Let me reach out to some friends. Give me
Oh,
just a minute. Let me get my phone.
great, great. Oh,
Oh, what about, do you know Christy?
Christy. Ah,
Hi, Christy.
hi. My name's Christy Ramos. I'm a certified coach and a VR counselor and some other things as well. I'm from America.
Oh, good.
Nice to
Let
meet you, Joshua. And who else?
Eddie.
Addie.
Hi, I'm Eddie Ayala. I am am an ASL instructor here at US, CSU LA. Okay. Who else can I call?
Oh, who's next? Who's next?
Monica.
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 Hello, can you see me? Hi, you can
Yeah.
see. Oh, that's great. Hello, great to be here. My name is Monica, and in ASL, this is how I spell my name. I'm right at the bottom of the world in New Zealand. I am a mum, I'm a wife, and I have lots and lots of jobs. I wear heaps of hats. I teach sign language and lots of other things, and it's lovely to meet you all. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Are there more people coming?
Yes. Hi, Maria.
I'm Maria Tanya. I have two first names, Maria Tanya, and then De Guzman is my last name. And I was born in the Philippines. I've lived here for 20 years. And now I work at California School for the Deaf, Fremont. And I'm supervising staff at the high school and the dorms. And it's very nice to meet you all.
Oh, we're happy you're here. Oh, I know somebody else. Let me call them.
There's another one.
Yes, Kaylin.
That's right, Kaylin.
Yes, my name is Kaylin. I live in America. I currently reside in New York City. I teach at NTID in Gallaudet, and I work in the film and theater industry.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is very exciting. See, Joshua, everyone's here to share their experience, right?
Right.
I think I've forgotten something.
What?
Oh, I forgot. There's a short announcement that needs to be made.
Oh, yeah, that is really important.
Oh, the announcement is there are tickets that are reduced in price for VDF, the Valley Deaf Festival. And how does that relate to here?
Yes, we have Valley Deaf Festival limited just to this week. We have discounted tickets because it's Deaf Awareness Week. So we are selling them at a reduced cost. For those who are local, you can go ahead and purchase tickets.
How exciting. You mean like this one right here?
Yes, so make sure to buy your tickets early.
I was early.
Yes, and come to Valley Deaf Festival. When is it?
Oh, let me look. November 18th. So it's very soon. November.
Yes. Yes, I think 2 months away. And how much are the tickets right now?
I'm trying to remember. For adults, they're $10. There's a $10 reduction. And for children, how much is it?
It's children under 12 or 13. Yes, so we are selling tickets for $5 off, just half price.
What about babies?
They're free. Birth to 3 are free.
Well, that's very important. Then, until the age of 3, they're free. Cool. Remember, when's the deadline for this reduced price? Tomorrow at what time?
Yes, tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And then online, you can buy them till midnight.
So get shopping.
Yes, please make sure to tell your family and friends and come and support our agency. And especially to buy them at a discounted rate. So make sure to do that now.
I'm glad I bought mine already because we don't know when they'll be reduced again.
Yes, that's good. I haven't gotten mine, but I will get mine today.
All right, good. Thank you. I want to ask our lovely friends a few questions, right, Joshua? And you want to too. That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
so let's get the process started. For everyone, I'm just curious, when was your very first trip? And how did you feel before you went ahead and went on the trip? How did you feel? Anybody want to share? Raise your hand. That's a
I was
brave.
asking who's the brave one.
All right, great. Thank you, Kaylin. Please go
All
ahead.
right. Yes, my first trip. I of course was very excited, very, very excited, because it was going to be a new adventure for me, a very new culture, a new language, new people. Everything was going to be so new from what I was used to growing up. And I was very curious about how other people lived. So I was like very excited for my trip. And of course, I was nervous. I did go alone. I didn't go with anyone else. I did go alone. It was a very new experience for me. I was a little hesitant, a little bit scared, but of course, I was most excited for that experience.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. You were very brave. I must admit, I'm very nervous.
Oh, yeah, no, I was not very scared. Well, I mean, I was scared a little bit, just, growing up and being in America and all of that, but I was very excited to be out of our country and visiting another country.
Anybody else? Christy.
Yeah, my first trip was to Costa Rica. And yes, I had always wanted to travel. I had the travel bug. And my family, though, never traveled. We would just go to a few places, but we never had left the country. And I wanted to go travel. So when I was 18, I was at Gallaudet University, and they had like the first year student program. So all of the students traveled to Costa Rica together. I was very excited. And at the same time, I was nervous. My mom was telling me, not to go because of what you see on the news. But when we went, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it and have had the travel bug ever since.
Thank you. Joshua, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think the first time too, you can be a little bit nervous, and just, there's a lot of different thoughts about what to expect. That completely makes a lot of sense. Wanting to go, but being nervous too. But having the courage to get out of the country too and get a taste of the rest of the world.
Yes. I want to say something briefly. I remember when I was small, I went to visit family in Mexico, and I would walk around and I saw animals. I was so fascinated to see cows on the street, and I wouldn't pay attention. I was young, and I don't really even remember too much about it because I was so young. I hope that's relevant. Thank you, Christy. Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to raise their hand? Eddie?
Yeah, my first, I went to Mexico alone when I was 2015, flying alone. I met my dad there, and it was a great experience. I was nervous, and of course, traveling by myself, but when I got there and met up with my dad, it was great. Last year was the first trip that I did completely solo. I went to the World Cup. And I wasn't meeting up with family or friends or anything. And I completely went. Christy was there. And so we hung out.
Krystal was my absolute inspiration, and she got me brave enough to go to Qatar. But the way I felt before I went was very nervous because people were saying such negative things about how dangerous Qatar was and how expensive it was, and it would cost so much money. And they said those two things over and over again. And I put that out of my consciousness and went. And I loved it, and I loved traveling, so I went.
Wow, thank you so much. And right. And like you can see me here in Africa. I enjoy traveling. Yes. Maria, I saw your hand up. Maria Tanya.
Yes. I went to Bangkok in Thailand. And the reason I went was I was invited for a Catholic conference. All the teachers were invited. I did not travel alone. I went with other colleagues, but they were all hearing, and they interpreted with me and for me. And in the Philippines, there are lots and lots of islands, over 7,000 islands. And I had traveled with friends and family and all that. So I felt no real intimidation regarding travel. I was in Manila in the north of Philippines, and then there are all these beaches and islands, and I would travel everywhere. But to go somewhere else in the world, that was new for me. To go to Thailand, it was amazing. And to see the difference in the cultures, and to see that deaf people, their work tended to be vendors in the center of town. They didn't have occupations or careers, and they would sell clothing, jewelry, soap, and so forth. That really struck me. And that's why that led to more travel. Then the next time I went to Europe, and it was a really good experience again.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. Monica?
Hi, I agree with everything everyone said. Travel is the impact of seeing different cultures around the world. It's just amazing, and the opportunity to meet people. Yeah, I'm actually from England.
Yes, and this is
Ha-
Joshua. I am in England.
Yeah, Josh. So, there's so many different places, and it's really great to research so that you know what to expect. And traveling in groups is great. Better than traveling on your own.
Great advice. Thank you. Joshua, do you want to put your money aside and go on our first trip together? We'll talk about that later.
Yes, we'll have to plan that soon. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, let's move on to the next question. For those of you who have been out of the country and traveled solo, how did you communicate? Did you use sign language? Did you gesture? Did you write back and forth? For those who did not know ASL, how did you communicate? Monica?
Well, I have done quite a lot of traveling to America, Africa, Australia, Asia. And I think, of course, we don't all have the same language. We've got different languages, but most people know ASL. So, or there's, people have their own languages, but we can kind of rely on that as a little bit of a common language, or using gestures, using some written language. And, 20 years ago, we didn't kind of have that. We didn't have that information, hadn't spread so much. But I think with the use of technology, that is super helpful and makes it so much easier to navigate. So I feel that with having a phone with you, it's really safe. It's a device that we can use to help us communicate when we need to and keep safe when we're traveling.
Thank you. Thank you. Christy?
Yeah, there's deaf communities everywhere you go. So there are deaf communities in every country, and we may learn some of their sign language or also use universal sign language. Um, I don't sign ASL when I go because I want to respect their home native language. And sometimes people are like, oh, I know ASL, it's fine. And I'm like, no, okay, I want to immerse myself in the culture and the language of the country I'm at. And it would be the same thing as, a lot of the hearing people do gesture. They write back and forth in English, and in America, I may gesture to people who don't know sign language here, and they don't know what I'm doing. So I have to write back and forth and all of that. So in other countries, people do gesture a lot more easy.
Oh, that's different. That's right. And every culture is different. It's great that you show the courtesy of behaving in a way that respects the country you're visiting. It's my responsibility to learn their way of signing rather than just using my language. So that connects you to them better.
Right. Another thing too is we can't use ASL if we're using another language. And so when I am able to use ASL, it's a lot easier. I went to Paris. There was a deaf festival. I saw Kaylin there. And there was a deaf festival. There were deaf people from America. We saw each other and interacted and used ASL. But then at other times if a lot of deaf Americans don't know universal sign language. So I think that's something we should learn.
And I told him, too bad I'm not using ASL. I couldn't switch back to ASL. Thank you for sharing your experience. Eddie? Yeah, sometimes when I am hanging out with hearing people, I use Google Translate, the app, and it's ready. It's right there installed in the iPhone for most people. So if I don't have an iPhone, or if it's dead or something, then I can always rely on gesture. But It's really amazing. Keep your battery charged because that phone is a powerful tool. It's so important for communication. Without it, you're kind of dead in the water. But if you're stuck, then you can move on. Just as Christy was saying, we communicate using their language and their culture. And I know I'm very strong in ASL and know very little international gesture, but I try to move in that direction. I try to incorporate some of their signs and learn and be open to what they're using and saying.
Right. Yes, Maria Tanya.
I'll never forget in 1998, I flew to Switzerland to Zurich, and there was a stop. I will never forget. There were no phones or anything, right, at that time. And I was from the Philippines and I had paper and pen. And I was writing, I'm deaf, and asked for, I needed paper. And I gestured that I was deaf and I needed a paper, a pencil. And the person on the plane was just totally thrown. And she pulled out a binder. I was like, a binder? So I looked, it was in Braille. So she thought I was blind. I was like, I can see, I just need paper to write on. And she just was thrown. Then I found my own paper and I wrote, I'm deaf, OMG. Anyway, today it's great because the phone is all set for what we need for communication. But unfortunately, in Japan, people have started learning ASL and they're travel ready. They can communicate in ASL. And so when I went to Japan, I didn't want to use ASL. I wanted to learn JSL, Japanese Sign Language. And I saw that they have classes for ASL for travelers. And I thought, no, I don't want to use ASL. I want to use International Sign Language. That's what my experience was in Japan, but I don't know what your experience has been in other countries, but it was very interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you. I had never actually thought of just, you can't always depend on your phone. If your phone dies, what are you going to do? And so being able to communicate in International Sign Language or to write back and forth is always great.
Yes, I think International Sign is more beneficial in a sense than ASL. We can talk about this more deeply, but Universal Sign Language is a basic form of communication, and or LSM or Japanese Sign Language, Mexican Sign Language, or Japanese Sign Language. We need to learn a bit about each of those languages wherever we're going.
Yes. When we're trying to sign, gesture, use International Sign Language, we have to think about how people are experiencing that language from us. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
Aylin, you had something? When I
Yeah.
go ahead.
When I've traveled, I have been to a variety of countries, and then I traveled all around Europe, and I've also been to Asia. When I went to Italy, I was there for 2 weeks studying Italian Sign Language. And I was only there for 2 weeks. And there were some young students and a couple of us who were older. And so we were learning as much as we could while we were there. And we were able to interact with deaf Italians. And they were able to understand us. They said that we were doing a pretty good job using Italian Sign Language. And they asked how long we had been there. And we said only 2 weeks. Like, oh, you've only been here 2 weeks. But, Italians gesture by nature. And so it was a boost in confidence in what we were learning. And of course, I don't use it often. And so I try to practice from time to time to retain what I learned. But it was a really good experience. And it's been easy for me to interact with people, introduce myself, learn some language, gesture with them, and yeah, they seem to understand me okay. I seem to also understand them, but I have a hard time sometimes producing the language. It does definitely take some time before I feel like I'm able to communicate easily.
Wonderful. What a positive experience. That's so good to know. Yeah, really a positive experience, as Joshua, even when you feel stuck, like from when you were talking about going to travel from or to the Philippines and being exposed, and when you're not exposed to something, it's harder.
Right, especially when it's sometimes easy to be scared or nervous when you're, interacting with a new language, and it's okay to make mistakes and to be supportive and understanding for yourself of that process and to not be afraid to try.
Yes, we have to support each other. Thank you. Yes. Christy, would you like to go next?
Yes, I think sometimes like going to different restaurants in different countries and some of the menus do also have English, so it's easy to go ahead and just point to whatever item you'd like to order. So that's really nice. A lot of the signs when you're driving, most countries also have their native language and then also have English underneath that. And so us who know English are privileged when traveling. It's very nice to have that. It's still definitely a learning curve, but my experiences have been great. Even in other underdeveloped countries and everything like that do also have English available.
Well, that's so cool. I like what you're saying about our experience as privileged individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to learn their language, their culture as well, right?
Right. And the reason that I say privilege is that if you don't know English and then you travel to another country, it may be a little bit harder to communicate with others. But most Americans actually don't travel outside of America. Yeah.
Yeah, it is ironic. It's true. They stay under a rock for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see here's where I am in Africa.
All right. Anybody else?
Eddie? I recently went to the World Federation of the Deaf, WFD, in Korea. And that was an international gathering of people from all over the world, deaf people from everywhere. It was amazing. And I met so many people, Koreans, Japanese, Europeans, everyone from all around the globe. But most of them I noticed used international gesture, or they would try to use the other person's signed language. The World Federation is an amazing international event where you learn so much and you pick up international gesture and signs from other countries, languages, and cultures. And next year there'll be another one. And every time I'm going to check it out to see if I can go. I've forgotten what the events were, but these international events happen regularly. And there's one coming next year. And when I see it, I go, and I encourage you to go to every international event.
See, Joshua, we need to start saving up so we can go.
Yes, a once a year event.
Thank you, Eddie.
Of course.
Would anybody else like to add anything? Maria Tanya?
Yes, at the World Federation of the Deaf, well, they tend to have that every 4 years, and they vote on which country it will be held in. And it's wonderful because people are exposed to all the various sign languages. And of course, there can be misunderstandings, but they work on getting through and communicating clearly. But on another hand, if you're traveling alone in another country and those deaf people are not experienced with international gesture, it's harder because we can't use a shared language. They don't know ASL, they don't know international gesture. And so I go to very basic gesture, but it's worth it for the experience because it's very rich. It's enriching for our lives, and going to conferences is as well. Agreed?
I agree. Christy?
It's also important. I used to live in Chile. For 6 months, I taught deaf children art history. And at that time, I did not know Chilean Sign Language. And I met my host family, and they didn't know ASL. So I was stymied as to how to communicate. And so I would just use objects and ask them, what's the sign for that? So I'd point to everything I saw for 2 weeks straight. And after that, I picked up the language quickly. Just the way babies do, right? You point to the thing, what do you want? What do you want? And they point. So it was a very excellent, very rich experience, very wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing, and great to see, very helpful to have that tip.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a little bit too. I went to Greece last summer on vacation, and I saw Greek Sign Language. It was very fascinating. I didn't understand it, but it was still interesting to see. I'm not an expert in it, and I wish that I was there more time so I could learn more. Joshua?
Oh, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, any other questions?
Oh, I'll ask the next question. The next question is, how many countries have you visited? And if you don't mind sharing, which ones were your favorites and why? That's the part I'm very curious about, your favorites and why. Anyone want to start us off? Eddie?
Yes, hi. I just started traveling more recently in the last year. Went to Qatar, and then I've been to 4 countries and 4 states. I'm currently working on going to more countries. Last year, I went to Qatar, I went to Mexico, I've been to Korea, and then also Japan. So in the last 10 months, I definitely want to travel more, and I'm addicted to traveling. I've loved them all equally, and I don't think that one experience was more or less than the other. The culture, the language, the food, meeting different people. I don't have a favorite. I think they've all been great.
Thank you. Good to know. And the food was good. Okay, good.
Maria Tanya?
In the Philippines, there are all these islands. There are 22 countries, I think, that I've also gone to. But I've gone, for example, to Japan 10 times. Crazy me. And that's because it's very close to the Philippines. It's a 4-hour flight. I've been to Europe, Cuba, Canada, all sorts. I started traveling in 1995 to this day. I have to save more for the next trip. The 2 best trips I've ever taken that I felt so connected with were Japan, because Japan's culture was so different and amazing, and the technology is so astonishing, and all the creativity. And I'm hooked on matcha. They don't just make it the way we think of it. They have chocolate, they have ice cream. I mean, I love it. And that's Asia. And in terms of Europe, I would pick France, because it's so beautiful, not just Paris, but all throughout the country of France. I haven't been to the south, but the parts I've seen are just amazing. Of course, the desserts are amazing. The romance is amazing. But I'm curious to hear what other people's perspectives are.
Yeah, not even just favorites, but thank you so much for sharing where you've been and talking about the food, the culture, the desserts. All of that has been great. Joshua? Okay, Christy? Christy's saying I've been to 26 countries and plan to travel until I physically cannot travel anymore. My favorite, though, would be, well, two favorites. Bali. Bali, because it was the first country where I felt very safe traveling alone as a deaf female. I do travel, but I have to be very cautious of my surroundings, being deaf, and then also being female. So I definitely, keep my eye out when I'm traveling. But in Bali, their country and their laws are really meant to protect people, especially foreigners. And they're very respectful to foreigners. I felt very safe not having to look over my shoulder or anything like that. And then also Italy. Italy. I love Italy. It's the culture, the food, the people. It's great. It's very good. And I'm hoping that someday I can live in Italy, even if it's only for a couple of years, if I can make that happen.
Well, the
But
pizza's great. The pizza's always good. Yep. Italy's on my list, says Joshua.
yes, Crystal's like, I'll be there. I'm going to join on your trip on my list too.
Yeah, the list gets longer and longer. Who had a hand up? Okay, Kaylin. I've been
Go
since
ahead.
2011, and I work in America and I have a busy life and I work, but so my travel hasn't been so much, but I've been to, I think like 12, maybe 11 countries, only Europe and Canada. I haven't been all around the world yet, but soon in a month, I'm going to Japan for 2 weeks so I can add that new experience. And just as Christy said, I am a forever traveler. I must travel. And now I'm saving the money in order to do the travel I want to do, I hope.
Oh, thank you. Another hand.
Eddie?
Oh, Eddie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if you want to travel, go, especially for the World Federation of the Deaf. That's a great opportunity to travel. I've been to Mexico. It was my cousin's quinceañera. So I wanted to go ahead and be with family, not just thinking, oh, okay, I'll go next time, go as much as you can whenever the opportunities arise, if it's with friends or family or alone. I wanted to go to the World Cup. And so that's why I ended up traveling that time. So go when you can.
Right. Don't wait. Grab the opportunity. Time flies, right?
Yes.
And then you'll have more stories to share, right? Christy? Go ahead. Do you want to go ahead? Christy?
Yeah. Today is guaranteed and tomorrow is not. So travel when you can, go for it. Don't wait. Don't wait until you retire.
Right. Don't wait. Krystal?
Monica?
Same as a lot of you have said, actually. Traveling, it's great to support each other. So New Zealand, we're right at the bottom of the country. Traveling to New Zealand, I've got to say, can be expensive. And compared to Europe and America, it can be expensive. Yeah, but now I've moved down to New Zealand. I have to wait for the prices to go down a little bit at the moment. So I haven't done much traveling just of recently. But, definitely I think it's worth going to World Federation of the Deaf events. And of course, using different sign languages, can be a challenge, but going back to that gesture is a good strategy. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I think Eddie had his hand up.
Yeah, traveling is good, like for just brain stimulation, just going for a couple weeks or a month. It can be great to have that information and that culture and language input. It's an amazing experience. And I think what you're able to learn, you're able to bring back and share stories with other people. And it's just such a stimulating experience.
That makes great sense. Great sense. And Mary Tanya has her hand up, I think. Yes, I used to, someone talked a lot about travel and how much they loved it and said, come. I was stuck here because of an internship, but my parents were there and I said, go to the Philippines. I couldn't go. And she hadn't been to a developing third world country yet. So she went and she asked me, what should I do? And I recommended that she find things that she had at home, pens and paper and candy, whatever, in case it was needed, and give it to the poor children, the deaf children in need. So she did. And she flew to the Philippines and met my family. And she learned so much about the culture and the language and the deaf community as well. And when she came back home, she sent me a long email in which she said she was just shocked that my home hit her hard. Because in America, deaf people have so much. Life is easy. They have SSI. And they're poor in the Philippines, but they're happy, they're loving, they're cooperative and supportive. In America, it's very independent and self-oriented. And she saw a big difference. So I thought it was great that she saw that difference and that she realized that. I see Monica has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. For me, I moved to New Zealand. And I agree with you, what you're saying. It's you need to be careful about being safe. Like I've been to Africa. I've been there in 3 areas about 25 years ago. It was very poor. The quality of the food was very different. And it had a really big impact on me seeing these other places in the world. So it's really important to go, when you're going to places, do research and prepare. Like make sure that you can prepare so you know what to expect, and then you'll appreciate the travel more. But, around the world, there's so many different things to see. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. I have a question for everyone. When you visit another country or when you travel, do you use hotels, hostels, friends' homes? And how often and how do you find the information about where to stay? Do you use the internet? Do you use apps? Oh, Monica, please.
So just briefly, hotels, staying with families, that can be more relaxing and you feel more safe and, meeting people. And I think sometimes it's better if you find families, you network, research. It's important to network. Yeah, establish those networks. That really helps. If you come to New Zealand, you're welcome to contact me anytime. Yeah, networks are really important.
Yes, knowing people makes networking so much more easy, so much easier. and makes for an easy connection.
And it's safer too. And of course, now we have the technology to be able to do that. So our phones really are an amazing source of being able to make those connections.
Yes, and we even technology, we have YouTube to be
Yeah,
able to share this information like today.
Yeah, we're able to see one another. That's so great. I just got a message. I just got a text that we're going to have a break coming up. We'll have questions from the audience from YouTube as well that may want to ask you all questions. So we'll grab the opportunity to get those questions. I just wanted to let everybody know that update. Thank you. And who was it that was just trying to speak?
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Remember too, at the beginning, when I first started traveling, I used a lot of, I was young, and so I was using hotels.
Hostels.
I was using hostels. But if that town isn't familiar with deaf people, it may be harder to find those connections, but then you can, meet people through the hostels and friends of friends. And it's always great to network through the deaf community, and then you can meet people and learn more along the way is really what I've found is best. If you are going through and work and, interacting with just hearing people, it can be a little bit harder. But I've been, eating, sleeping at the hostels. I've also done Airbnbs. But it's before Airbnbs, I was doing hostels. They tend to be the cheapest, so that's what I was using. And also for Airbnbs, it's like just an everyday house, and not the bunk beds like in hostels. And so, if it feel like you're living in that country when you use Airbnbs.
Yeah, it feels like home.
Yeah, it's great. And then you can kind of pitch in with other people. So I was doing hostels or staying with deaf people that I knew.
Thank you. I didn't think of that. Okay, perfect. And Joshua, were you trying to say something? Oh, Christy is trying to volunteer. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, for the first few years when I started traveling, I did stay at hostels. I was a college student, and so I didn't have tons of money. So I was traveling on a budget. But when I was with a partner or friend, I felt that it was better. But when I started traveling alone, hostels, I didn't feel safe in hostels with bunk beds, and there were people from all over, which is fine, but different backgrounds, and some people weren't safe. I felt some people were not safe. And so Airbnbs are nice because it's a private space. If it's going to just be a couple days, there may be people who live there and just have a room. But if you're going to be there for a week or two, I prefer to have my own place. I would network with deaf people about staying at their houses, but now we may meet for coffee. They may give me a tour, but I don't stay with them. I prefer to have my own spot because especially I don't feel pretty drained at the end of the day, and I prefer to have my own place to kind of re-energize.
To get your sleep and wake up and energized. I want to let you know that it's getting to the moment for a break. And if there's any last thing anyone wants to say, Eddie. Okay, Eddie, you've got the last word.
Yes, I'm talking about traveling, in guitar, Korea, Japan. I've done Airbnbs as well. When I was in Qatar, the Airbnbs were very expensive, but I saw a friend that was also going, who I didn't know they were going. And so they had a houseboat, and I asked how much it was to stay there, and was able to learn more about the prices and those opportunities. And they asked about splitting it. So I was paying double where I was, and it was further, and I was having to take public transportation to get there. And where they were was very close to the stadium. So it was very nice and very easy. Social media can be a powerful tool to make those connections when you're traveling, to ask questions and communicate that way.
Oh, yes, asking people is better. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, okay, says Josh, now it's time for a break. We'll take just 10 minutes and we'll be back at what time do we need to be back? At 7 o'clock. Okay, 7 o'clock California time. It's 6:50 now in the evening. Okay, my bad. I forgot the elephants behind me. Okay. See you in 10 minutes. And you can go ahead and turn off your cameras. Hello, 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 hello again. We're back. It's very hot here in Africa. Krystal, did you bring a fan? I forgot I left it home, says Krystal, but I thought it was going to rain. But instead, it's hot, hot, hot here. Joshua says, next time.
Cold here in New Zealand.
I did bring water, says Krystal. And Joshua says, next time you'll remember to bring a fan. Don't we have another announcement, Joshua? Is Krystal's asking? Yes, we want to remind the YouTube audience that we have Deaf Awareness Week, DAW, this week. We have discounted tickets this week during DAW, Deaf Awareness Week, for our Deaf Valley Festival, Valley Deaf Festival, VDF.
Yes, it's November 18th. Do we have the flyer? Oh. It is 10 in the morning, right? Is that 10? Until
4.
Right.
It's
Right,
a
yes.
event in Fresno, California, right where you'll be able to find that experience. You'll buy your tickets. Adults cost how much? The discounted price?
I want to remember. I think it's $10, right?
Yes, $10 now. Until when? What's the deadline?
Oh, tomorrow.
Oh dear.
Yeah, to purchase in person until 5 p.m. and online until 11:59.
Yeah, basically midnight. And right, 11:59. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to put up, when we finished here, I'm going to put up the QR code. So have your cameras ready to take a picture of the QR code. Here it is. Pick up your phones. The discount is worth grabbing. Grab it now. Great. I hope you grabbed it. I hope you already got
I can't get a ticket. I'm in New Zealand. Darn it, I can't make it.
on. Fly here to America. Maybe
You
next
should come.
I wish.
Okay. We'll share the picture of the QR code one more time at the end before we wrap up the whole evening. So if you've missed it, don't be too disappointed. It'll be shown to you again.
You want to go ahead?
Okay, so we're going to continue with questions. I'll ask the next question, and then we'll have audience questions. Because some of the people have some I've been told some of the people have some very good questions. They've gotten inspired to start saving money and get ready to travel. And their comments are very positive. They're very excited. Okay, so you're inviting them to Africa. I'm inviting them here to England. I hope you're all inspired to come.
Yes, it's very hot here.
Okay, let me continue with the next question. When you visit other countries, do you take a tour? Do you when you take a tour or visit a museum or anything like that? Have you experienced any challenges, delays, weather, other experiential challenges? And if so, how have you resolved those challenges? Anybody want to volunteer? Kaylin.
Yeah, I've gone on a few tours. Most of the time, though, it's been with class. So we went to Paris to study history, and we were required to go on specific tours as a group. But I was the only deaf person. I had a deaf friend who came with us and went on some of the tours, but everybody else was not deaf, and we did not have an interpreter. So yeah, I couldn't afford to pay an interpreter to come travel with me. Again, I was a college student. So my teachers were our guides, and I could lip read some of them. And then during the tours and the tour guides, though, I didn't understand what they were saying, since especially in France, they were speaking English, but it's a different type of English, not American. So like they just move their mouths differently and don't open their mouths as wide. And so my teachers would mouth what the tour guides were saying to me and my deaf friend. My deaf friend didn't care too much and was just busy taking pictures, but I really wanted to learn. And so I lip read what I could. I had to ask some questions, ask for some clarification, and that was kind of my workaround. But if I went again, I would probably, I don't know if I would go with a hearing group again, because it was hard to interact with them. A lot of it was just me looking through like the booklets and things like that. But a lot of the museums, like the British museums, have things in BSL when you go in.
Yes, they do. That's true.
Yeah, so I don't know much BSL, but it was nice to have that. It was really better than nothing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have access to any information. So I was able to kind of get a better idea of what was being communicated by watching it in BSL. So it was nice to be able to have that. Then I went through and read a lot. I was able to kind of get, a visual of what I was experiencing.
A deaf tour is the best, but if I can't have that, I'll take it. Yes, says Joshua, you scratch the surface, but with a deaf-led guide, some deaf people have their own business offering vacations and tours and so forth.
Yeah, when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I majored in history. So I understood a lot of what we were studying, and was able to find a lot of that information. And some of the things I didn't know, I could look up to learn more about that. So no matter what country I was in, and then I was able to, and they were wondering how I knew, and I was like, oh, well, I've done my research. And my friend didn't know much about it. So I was explaining to them what I was learning, and they just kept taking a lot of pictures. They weren't so interested in the history part of it.
I'd be happy to learn. I'll tell you, I would be very happy to learn. You could tell me about my environment here in Africa. Does somebody else have a hand up? Christy? Yes, now things have grown. The deaf tours have grown. And so there are all sorts of companies. There's one company that has deaf tours. I've forgotten the name of the company, but anyway, Tony, he's a deaf guy. Anyway, my first experience was Bali with a deaf guided tour, and I really liked it. I like tours because it makes everything, there's so little. I prefer to do it on my own pace, and tours go so fast, they just go here, there, and the next place. But I like getting lost and seeing more places. So from then on, even though I enjoyed that tour, I have gone on my own, and I ask local people what they suggest, and then I do the touring on my own time.
So yeah, Maria Tanya. I have gone on some tours And when I'm older, I may go on some like senior citizens tours. But right now, I don't prefer to travel that way. In France in 2019, the person I was in a relationship with, their mother was in their 70s, and then my son was 16. So we felt like, my partner's mother was going a little bit slower. My son wanted to kind of hurry through things. And so it was a little bit of a balance. We did miss some museums because of time and all of that. So it was kind of frustrating. But what was better is I worked it out with my son or my partner and I, but the four of us in the group having such a variety of ages and interests and things that we like. My son didn't want to go on all the tours, and my partner's mother didn't want to play games. And so in when I went to Japan before, this is before technology. And like I mentioned, though, I've been to Japan like 10 times. And so they have maps of their public transit and all of that. And they do have some stuff in English that is very international friendly. But looking, I didn't know which way was north and south. And so how to look at the map was interesting. And so having to look through the public transportation, those maps, figuring out which line I needed to go on and all of that. But now it's really great, especially because we have our phones. So it's definitely a different time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nowadays, we're so dependent on our phones, and we take them everywhere with us. We can't function without them, with our smartwatches, everything. We keep those things with us. It's cool, but it's nice to see nature as well, to see the culture, to see the people, to interact, to relate to them. We don't want to always be on our phones. Krystal saying, I'm always accompanied by my phone as well. Thank you so much, Chris, to Maria Tanya. Eddie, did you want to share next? I haven't experienced a guided tour. I missed it at the World Federation of the Deaf because that happened the week beforehand. So I explored on my own 3 days ahead of time. I met a friend and later, but I was by myself at the beginning, and I looked on Google. Google Maps helped a lot. Google research helped to find the top 10 places, or sometimes I just found things on my own, and it was challenging. It's true. Sometimes if I needed to get back home, the bus would take forever, 30 minutes, an hour or something, and I'd sit there and wait forever. Or I'd ask about Ubers or taxis and they weren't available, so it took forever. Or I'd miss the connection or something. So it took a lot of patience, big time. And there were a lot of frustrations, but I didn't let myself get upset. It was important to be patient. I can't emphasize how important patience was. It was so hard to figure out how I got somewhere, and then once I got there, how to get back. So it was great mental work. It took a lot of conscious thinking. And then so first of all, patience and thinking and being conscious, because you can't just stumble along and ignore. You just move along carefully and attentively, but do your best and you'll figure it out. You learn as you travel. Absolutely. Travel is educational.
Yeah, it does take a lot of research beforehand. Okay, does I see another hand? Okay. The next question's for everyone. Did you research before you went, before you traveled, and what did you research? Did you look up tours and all of that?
Hey, Liam, did you have an answer? Okay, here's Kaylin. Everyone was different. Everyone is different, but I like very much to plan far in advance. That's my way. I am absolutely obsessed. And when I travel by myself, I plan even more in advance. And when the question was asked how long, I plan for 6 months to a year, depending on how long away I'll be away. I like to be way in advance for first my plane tickets, then where I sleep, then my transportation in town, saving my money, figuring my budget for the food, and then I fly there and I don't worry from once I'm there. But I am obsessed with knowing every detail and figuring out all the what ifs. So I do that way, way, way in advance. But it's easy when it's just me because I can do things as I wish and change up. But when it's a tour, I have to figure out when's the best time to buy it, when's the price going to be the best, and what's the best area. And it's always important to know when the prices change. And if you go someplace regularly, you know the right time to buy the tickets or buy the or book the hotel or book the flight or whatever. But when I'm going to a new country, I have to do a lot of research and look into all the elements to decide what I should do and when I should grab whatever the item is, like a ticket or a hotel.
Wow, I think a year would even be better than the 6 months.
Well, that's just me. You know, if you can do it at the last minute, more power to you. But honestly, for me, if it's last minute, it would throw me off. I'd be a wreck. Some people can do it off they can just fly by the seat of their pants. And I give them kudos for that. Good for them.
Yeah, I think once you get used to it, maybe you wouldn't need as much time. Christy? Christy? Yeah, I usually look online to see which countries are safe for me to travel as a female and traveling by myself. I'll take a look, I'll do some research on those countries to see where I'd like to go. And then I start researching their culture. I see how they view women, what they're dressing, how they tend to dress. I don't want anyone to view me as a foreigner, so I try to blend in as much as possible and do what I need to do, whether that be a hairstyle or how I dress. So I do that for safety reasons. And then also I start researching flights. I compare prices. I'll keep an eye out on that. I also use it's a private website where I can look up flights, and the flights are the same because if you don't use a private browser, they will so I do incognito as a private browser so that prices don't go up, because if they see my research history, the prices will go up every time I look. So I do that, and I'm a vegetarian. And so I also see which countries are vegetarian friendly. I went to Argentina for 2 weeks and they are not vegetarian friendly. None of the Argentinian food is vegetarian. It's a lot of meat. So other than that, I try to plan my trips at least 6 months in advance so I have time to research their culture and to make sure that I can be respectful of their culture. If I don't do enough research or give myself enough time, I don't feel like I can be culturally sensitive to the countries I'm visiting. So I try to plan at least 6 months in advance.
Wow, good to know. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. Well, I'm pleased that you're a vegetarian. I am as well. And Eddie, you have something you want to add? Go ahead, Eddie. Yeah, thanks. It depends on where I go. If I'm going to Mexico or somewhere close, I might plan that at the last minute or close in time to the event, because I know what to do. I have friends and family that I might be visiting. But if I'm by myself, I'll do it more further in advance. There are so many factors that influence the decision of how early to plan. The World Cup tournament, I must tell you, I did that way too close in time, like 2 weeks ahead of time. I don't recommend that. It was quite an awkward process, and it was challenging. But I would say for a big trip, I really highly recommend planning way in advance. But for a shorter trip, it can be different. It depends on your budget, who you're going to visit, who you're going to meet with, friends, family, or strangers. And it depends on your time. The other factor, well, I think that's enough for now. I can't remember the other thing I was going to say.
When you remember, let me know.
Of course. Okay.
Time? Yeah, I try to do like 6 months to a year ahead of time, but it really depends on where I'm going and how much time I have. Because my advice would be, well, what's challenging for me is that I like to reserve everything. And if I'm going to Europe, I will go to 5 different countries. Like I'll go to Madrid, and then I will go to Italy, and I want to go to Venice. And then I'm trying to arrange the trip, make sure I can get the reservations, get the rental car, and that the flights work out. Because sometimes if the flights are delayed, that kind of throws off all of that. So then you have to contact the next country you're going to and all of those accommodations and making sure that you can kind of get it all sorted out. Depends on making sure you have reception and that there's Wi-Fi available. But if I'm going to just one country, it tends to be easier because I can just plan one thing at a time, and I can take the bus, or I can go like in Asia, they have what's called Grab. It's like Uber, but you can go ahead and make those transportation needs. But when you're going from country to country, like in Europe, you have to make sure that all of the other accommodations are timed out correctly. So again, it just depends on the situation.
And it can be such a waste of money. I can't even handle it if you lose money because you didn't get there in time for your hotel and still have to pay for it. All those factors, you're being a vegetarian options being limited, making sure that all your needs are taken care of, making sure that you've got what you need, making sure that all the options are available to you, and that your plans operate with your flights connect with your hotels and so forth. There are so many factors. Christy, go ahead.
Yeah, when you're traveling to different ways to save money when you're traveling. So sometimes I'll bring some dry food from home, rice, oats, pasta. I can bring that with me. And the hotels and Airbnbs, I'll eat out maybe, a couple times a week, and then eat in where I'm staying. That saves a lot of money. I also, if you are booking Airbnbs or hostels, hotels for 2 weeks, sometimes there may be a change of plans, and that means that you're stuck paying for the money without refunds. So once I fly like that day, then I make the reservation. I don't always do it ahead of time. I book stuff while I'm there too, because if plans change, you can go ahead and change your accommodations as well. I travel a lot, so I'm kind of comfortable doing that, some of that stuff last minute, and some people want to make sure they do it ahead of time. So it just really depends, and just expect the unexpected,
Right. Things can get thrown off, and you have to keep moving forward, and you have to adjust your plan to arrive early or late, or start early or late. Krystal saying, I don't want big hair, so I have to bring my hair products and my hair dryer. That's critical in my particular travel suitcase.
Yeah, does anybody else have anything to add?
Okay. Then Joshua, do you have the next question?
Yes, I have the next question. Have Do you have any travel plans? And I know some of you talked about maybe your next trip. So we want to go through, share that, where you're going and when.
Yes, please tell us.
Maybe we want to join. Christy?
Christy. My next trip is to go to, oops, let me fix my view. Okay. I plan to travel to Ireland for a week alone. And what's new for me, I never rent a car when I travel. I just never do. I use the trains, the buses or whatever. But in Ireland, everyone tells me it's a good idea to rent a car so you can drive the whole island. It's worth it because the train system doesn't have every area covered and all that. So I'm going to be driving and I'm going to be driving on the left side of the road. So I'm nervous, but I'm excited at the very same time. I think it's a great experience and I can't wait to take advantage of it. Just wanting to be sure that you meant Ireland. Yes, Ireland. Because the signs vary for Ireland. In America, we have another sign. I want to add one more thing. I made a commitment to travel to two different countries every year, two more countries. So it's part of my lifestyle choice. So I've got to make time for it.
That's good. Yeah, to be able to go to multiple countries. And it's nice to even have, just scratch the surface and travel, even if it's just a country into once more people can kind of get that traveling itch and then want to start saving that money.
Yeah, you have to save money. And I'm thinking I'm going to let my husband stay home and keep earning money while I go travel and spend it.
Thank you, Christy. Caitlin? Yeah, like I mentioned before, in November, I am going to be going to Japan for 2 weeks. I've already started planning out some other trips as well. So I want to go to Europe for the art festival. It's be my 5th time, so it'll be my 6th time actually going for that. I really enjoy everyone, a bunch of a deaf group going for that festival. That's great. And I tend to go every other year. I tend to travel every other year. But with my birthday in November, I'm 34. So I'm going to be 34. And so I usually stay home for my birthday and all of that. But yes, I'm going to Japan. Hopefully I can go to Ireland, and I want to be able to take a trip for my birthday. November tends to be a cheaper month to travel. Summers are really expensive. So I want to be able to go on a trip every year for my birthday for an international trip. And then probably every 2 years, I still want to go on a longer trip as well.
Oh, you're thinking, huh, Krystal? Yeah, I was thinking, I'm here in Africa and it's so expensive. I didn't think of that. Winter is better. It's cheaper. Okay, I'll remember that. Thank you. But some animals hide in the wintertime. You won't be able to see them, says Joshua. Well, I'm good with that if there are no lions, says Krystal.
You're safe with the lions behind you. They'll take care of it.
Okay, anybody else? Okay,
yes.
Maria Tanya. I go to the Philippines every 2 years because I have family there and it's wonderful. I pack things that I don't need from home, or my friends give me things that they don't need anymore. And I bring the things that we have for the ones who don't have them. I bring summer clothes only, not winter clothes, because they just don't need them. And my friends there, I have friends there who have a very hard life. When COVID hit, I didn't get to see them for almost 5 years. So then I found my sister's ill. So I need to plan. I'm hoping to see if I can go next year or the year after. It depends on my budget. Right now I'm stuck because my son's going to a private university in LA and it's costing us an arm and a leg. If it weren't for that, I could budget the money, but I've spent the money on, I have to allocate that money to his education. And it's 5 years, of a private education. It's still my responsibility. So first of all, the Philippines and Romania is the other country because my boyfriend was born and grew up there. And I want to go see his world and the culture. And I want to see all and the home of the vampires, Dracula. So come, everybody wants to come, fine, come with me. What a great opportunity.
Yes. That'll be good. All right. Thank you.
Eddie, would you like to share next?
Yes. I've made a commitment to go to Mexico every year. I'm Mexican. I want to learn more Spanish, the culture. I have family there. I want to learn more LSM. And so I was going every 2 years with my dad, and I don't mind traveling alone now. So I want to go ahead and do that. I also do want to go to other countries, not just Mexico. So next year, like I mentioned, they're having the festival, like Kaylin mentioned. And so I want to go ahead, and I'm very interested in going on that trip as well.
Well, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, that festival in France, the Deaf Arts Festival, sounds wonderful. And it'll give you more opportunities to network. Come on, Krystal, let's pack up and go.
Oh, yeah. We're going to see where my husband is too.
Oh, good. Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to share? Okay. Last question from us. What advice do you have for people before they travel?
Advice for the audience and for all the people watching. Any advice you might have for them, anything you're willing to share. Some of those things you've already shared will be very useful, but perhaps at least share your top tip, advice you've gotten that stuck, that really worked. Kaylin, were you going to start?
Yeah, one tip that someone shared with me is that you want people to come into your house and to respect it, right? So when you're going into another house, another culture, make sure you're respecting that as well. Be open-minded and have mutual respect. I think that's really important. And just to have an open mind and an open heart. Those are all really important to be able to build those connections with another human. And every country is different. But again, we are all humans and we want that human connection.
Wonderful advice. Thank you. Thank you. At core, we are alike. Thank you very much. Maria Tanya. For travelers who want to plan, I want to encourage you, as we said before, to plan ahead of time. Research, not just the websites, but there are various things you can look at. Books that have travel guides. Talk to friends who've been to that country and ask them what they've learned. Ask them what was culture shock for them. Ask them the do's and don'ts. Ask people. That'll help you prepare so much better. And booking the hotel, yes, it's nice for privacy, but if you want to really immerse yourself in the culture, maybe you can find a host family. Like Kaylin said, be open to learning about the culture rather than bringing your expectations and laying them on top of the experience. My other tip is, I brought something to show you. This right here. This is where I keep my passport. You never know. Your purse might be stolen, things might be stolen from your purse. You might not find it in your purse. You might want to put it down in the hotel. I don't leave my purse anywhere. I don't leave this anywhere. I wear it all the time, and I don't wear it on the outside of my clothes. I wear it inside so it doesn't flap around. And I keep my credit cards and money in there. And that way I don't have a wallet that can be stolen or lost. That's my best advice right there. That's my tip.
That's really good advice. Thank you. What do you think about a fanny pack?
Oh, that's not my idea of the best idea, because it's so obvious. People can see it and they know that you've got stuff there. It's flat and thin. It doesn't show. It's light. So nobody knows I'm carrying, what I'm carrying.
Okay, so I guess you carry just the essentials.
It's probably everybody by their own choice. Christy, you want to add something?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that feel that traveling is expensive. If you kind of relook at your budget and see where you're spending your money, there's probably things that you don't need or that don't benefit you. Like if you go out to eat a lot, try cooking at home more. It could even be more healthier, and then you'd save some money for traveling. If you're buying a lot of Starbucks, cut back on that. Maybe partying, drinking, paying for all those drinks when you're out. Buying a lot of clothes. There's a lot of ways you can cut your budget to make money for traveling, save money for traveling. Take some sacrifices. And, if you want to travel, you can make the sacrifices other places.
Absolutely. Oh no, I'm very guilty of the Starbucks habit.
Yeah. Credit cards also aren't always reliable because they don't always work in other countries. And so, one credit card that works, there's not all credit cards work all the time. So when I went to Cuba in 2019, and I had my credit cards with me. I also had American currency, enough for like the first week. And I was holding the American currency, but then there was two different other currencies. It was CPC, and I wasn't able to transfer those back to American dollars. And so CUC, it was like $1 to $1. Or like 125 per American dollar. But in CUP, and then there was different currencies to use. But my friend and I went together and was out of US dollars pretty quickly. And so we were kind of stressed in how we were going to get enough money. So I ended up loaning them some money. So be prepared. You can't really, predict everything. And so make sure that you have the cash and currency that you need.
Excellent tip. Thank you. Kaylin? And Eddie, I think, has something to say as well. Yes, I have a brief one. Don't overpack. Don't do it. Like you might have these thoughts. I think I might need this. I might need this. I might need that. If you think you might need it, don't bring it. If you think you must have it, put it in. Because depending on your situation, I prefer a backpack and that's it. I just throw it on my back and I go. And I'm very mobile. In some countries, there are stairs, no elevators, no moving staircases, nothing. And you're carrying your luggage up all those stairs And people look at you when you're on those stairs with all that luggage and they're like, oh, clearly American. Bring your own backpack and walk smart. And they
That
say,
is so true.
don't pack heavily, pack light. The other thing is, oh dear, I've forgotten it now. Well, your phone, the new technology, download the app for translation. Have it ready before you go. The translation app. You never know in interacting with people and communicating. Sometimes it's good to download because then you can look and see what things mean in their culture and their rules and so forth. Have that ready in your phone. Those are my two top tips. The first one is the most important. Don't overpack. Trust me, you will be glad you didn't.
That's good advice. Thank you. Yeah. I'm gonna have to start taking your advice. Definitely, it's easy to make that mistake.
Yes. Who has their hand up? Oh, Christy, I think, or Eddie. Christy, okay.
Yeah, I agree. Pack less than you think. If you think you need something, that's fine, but pack old clothes that you may stop using soon. And after that, give it away. You'll have less to bring home, and then you can buy stuff and bring that home instead of bringing home dirty clothes. For the app, also, it's good to exchange the currency through an app. So if you're buying something that may be a different price, you can look how much that's going to be compared to US dollars and see if it's a reasonable price or not. So that's also great to have on your phone.
Yes, an app that shows the exchange rate. That's a great tip. And I need all the help I can get. Thank you. Okay. Eddie? Yes. Fear is what I want to talk about. A lot of people are so fearful, and that blocks them from travel. And they make assumptions. They have these ideas of what's going to happen, and fear gets in the way. But how to reduce that fear is to do research, maybe talk to people who've had the experience, and that will reduce your fear and increase your confidence and help you, as well as planning. Planning helps you feel less fearful because you know what you're going to do. And then you go and you feel even less fear. If you understand, it reduces the fear. If you have no connections, if you have nothing to help you know differently, then you'll never travel. You'll never travel until you retire. You need to, and by the time you retire, maybe you won't be able to walk very well. So it's very important to travel while you can.
Yeah, that's true. Got to make the most of the time we have now. Maria Tanya? Yeah, you have to really be careful with the water. That's another tip. There are some times where I won't mention the countries, but I've been to some countries, and if I eat salad, they may have washed it with their tap water, and then I eat it and I have stomach issues. So I would suggest to buy bottled water. It really depends on the country. Some are fine and some of them aren't. So also be careful of if bottled water, but if you're getting it with ice, that can also, sometimes they'll give it to you with ice, and the ice is made from tap water. A lot of vegetables are washed with tap water. So it's important just to, be mindful of that.
Got it. Oh, that makes good sense. Christy. Yes, that's right. Bottled water is very important. And I remember one country that I went to, I ordered a coconut with milk in it. And I looked, and there was so much juice in it. Usually when you cut open a coconut, there's not that much juice in it. And we thought, wow, maybe in that country they had lots and lots and lots of juicy coconuts. But after drinking it, I was sick as a dog. My friend and I threw up for days. And for 2 days, we were in bed and we realized, oh my God, we were screwed. So I feel like they must have added water to it. So you have to check that out and ask, is this pure coconut milk, for example, or did they add something to it? Got to watch out for those things. Yeah, indeed.
Eddie? Yeah, make sure you can get, food poisoning. I have been to Mexico and you're not always sure where you're going to eat. And so I got sick and I ended up being in the hospital for a week. I had to get an IV. It was actually a terrible experience. So be careful what you're eating as well.
Oh, it's hard. The food smells so good. It tastes so good. It's very tempting.
I know it can be tempting. You have to be careful where you eat.
Oh, but you're a vegetarian. That's right. I'm the vegetarian.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, Kayla. Krystal, go ahead. Monica, did you have any last comments?
Okay, yeah. So your recommendations are fantastic. And, yeah, what you've said about the water, being prepared, making plans, networking, same as all you've, said, traveling around, like perhaps in some third world countries, and also making sure that you've saved up in advance and worked out your budget.
Thank you. I think the questions are, we've finished our questions. Let's see what the audience's questions are. Joshua, do you mind bringing those questions to the table? I have a lot to think about.
Yeah, we have the audience questions. I'll go ahead and bring those up as much time as we have. I think we have probably time for 2 or 3 of the questions. The first question we have from the audience is, without being too obvious, can you talk about public transportation? I think this question has to do with public transportation. They're asking about public transportation and navigating. I think that's what it's asking. Do we want to talk about public transportation?
I believe that they're asking how you use public transportation, like allowing you to transfer the amount of money and how you spend your money, how you buy tickets, that kind of thing. Eddie, did you want to go ahead and try and answer that?
Yeah, I went to Korea and sorry, let's wait and get Eddie spotlighted.
Can you spotlight Eddie, please? Uh-oh, we haven't got Eddie spotlight. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, now you're big.
Yeah, I went to Korea and Japan, and the public transportation, I used a train. It's like the metro subway. It does require you to use cash. So I didn't have cash. I only had a little bit left, and I was going to use that to buy food. And so I had to go to the ATM, which was further away, and get some cash and then go back. So it did take up a lot of time. I was not prepared. So it's always good to have like more extra cash, or to have a little bit that you're kind of saving and use your card when you can, so that you have cash when for things that only take cash, like public transportation and some food places. So make sure you kind of have that backup ready, and so you can make sure that you can get the tickets that you need to be able to take the public transportation. It may be confusing sometimes too on like which line to take when you're taking public transportation, like if it's number 101 or 102, and looking on your phone, and you're not sure if you're taking the blue line or the red line. So don't be afraid to ask for help. there are always employees there, or there's going to be always locals that you can ask. So I usually ask an employee if I'm getting on the right line. They'll tell me yes or no, and then I will be on my way. So it's really important just to make sure that you get where you need to be.
Thank you. Thank you. Good thought. Joshua, do you have another question on the list?
Yes, the next question is, for those of you who know more than just ASL, do you tend to use a mixture of the sign language that you know when you're in another country? And do people that you interact with tend to know more than one sign language? Kaylin?
My friends in Europe vary from one side to the other. They know a number of sign languages, and they know the sign languages of the nearby countries and have learned from their friends and learned their language. And then some of them have one sign language that they know and nothing more. Sometimes they know international gesture, but they don't even always know that. They know their language, which means they have to gesture in a much more simplified manner. But the people on the other side of the fence who want to practice ASL drive me crazy, because I want to learn their language and they're like, no, we want to learn ASL. So some of them are very persistent about learning ASL. They're like, you're here, you're American, and you're with us, and I am their toy as far as they're concerned. I feel like they're manipulating my hands and arms to make me sign with them. So I'll let them, one person or another, but not all of them. And they like say, oh, okay, because I want to sign their sign languages. So we have to negotiate that. But I know a lot of deaf people who know two sign languages, but deaf people in America tend to know one American Sign Language. People in Europe often know not just two, but a number of sign languages. Oh,
Maria Tanya? Yeah, in Asian countries, they know ASL and their own native country's sign language. A lot of them have traveled internationally as teachers or to learn about teaching, and they've incorporated multiple sign languages. Like they've come to Gallaudet. They've come, maybe there's missionaries that they've met from other churches or something like that. And so there are some sign languages that are similar to ASL. And then in like Hong Kong, they have ASL too. So it's actually a mixture of their language and ASL. In Japan and Korea, they have Japanese Sign Language, and then Korea has used some Japanese Sign Language and made it into their own Korean Sign Language. And so there are classes in ASL and English that I took before, or there's ones that Gallaudet offers as well. And so when I like in the Philippines, I don't have any problem communicating because a lot of people use ASL, and ASL has had such a strong influence on other sign languages around the world.
They often train people before they come to America in English and ASL, so they don't even bring their language to the US. It's nice that there are so many options. There's international gesture and different sign languages. And I personally have learned a little bit of international gesture. I know some Mexican Sign Language. I get what you're saying. The cultures, it's when we learn their languages, we can take in their culture and language better. Oh my gosh, we have 7 minutes left. So perhaps we can wrap up.
Before we wrap up, though, I want to remind the audience about our announcement.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. For you people in the audience, you may have missed our announcement earlier. We have discounted tickets for Valley Deaf the Valley Deaf Festival. And so I'm going to share the QR code so you can take your cameras out and buy the tickets. These are the tickets right here. So scan this code.
Okay, Joshua. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to the panelists for volunteering your time to be with us tonight and sharing your experience with us and the audience.
Absolutely. I hope that the audience got as excited and inspired as we did. I think Krystal and I are ready to start planning our next trips and travel becoming a bigger part of our lives going forward.
Yes, I want to thank you also to the great team of interpreters. They did fantastic. Also to our tech team, also did wonderful tonight. And thank you so much for everybody in that joined us on YouTube.
And thank you for interpreting, the interpreters for doing this challenging task of interpreting all of us speaking one after the other and taking turns.
Yes, and YouTube Live.
Well, if your husband watched this and he catches you and knows that you're going to travel, I guess life is good. Tell your husband hello.
Yes. All right.
Thank you all for your time. What a pleasure. I feel so invigorated, and thank you all for your time on the panel. I hope that we'll all stay in touch and